Have you ever watched a music video and within the first few seconds you felt overly locked in on it and you really didn't even know why? Like, it's not even about the artist at this point. It's the colors, the movement, the energy. But something about it almost feels familiar. And then halfway through, you're thinking to yourself, yo, where the hell was this even shot? Was it Kingston, Jamaica? Was it Brooklyn or Lagos? And why does it feel like it could be all three at once? Well, that feeling right there, that's not a coincidence. That's not just good visuals hitting your screen. That's a system being developed and formed. Because what we're watching right now is Afrobeats, hip hop, and dancehall slowly merging into one unified visual identity. And most people haven't even caught up yet. They think it's just a trend. It is not. This is a structure. This is culture syncing with itself in real time. Now, let me slow this down for a second. There used to be very clear lines. You could look at a music video and instantly know where it came from. New York videos felt gritty with a lot of attitude. Jamaican videos felt raw and kinetic. And Afrobeats had their own rhythm. Bright, celebratory, rooted in the place of its origin. Different pacing, different priorities, and of course, different storytelling. But now, everything feels like it's speaking the same language. Not identical per se, but aligned. And in this case, that alignment is very dangerous. In a good way, because that alignment leads to scale, global scale. So the question becomes, how did we get here? And most importantly, what does it mean? Now, come with me. Let's go deeper, because it didn't just start with the visuals. It started with a movement of people. West African rhythm carried through history, landed into the Caribbean, and then of course evolved into dancehall, then migrated to cities like New York, London, Toronto, and shaped hip hop in many ways that a lot of people don't always acknowledge. So when people act like, Afrobeats, dancehall, and hip hop are just collaborating, you're not even scratching the surface, bro. This isn't collaboration, it's reconnection. Now, what we're seeing now is what happens when that reconnection hits the internet. Because the one thing the internet does better than anything else is remove the distance between us. Artists are in closer proximity than they've ever been before. Not physically all the time, but creatively. For example, a producer in London is sending beats to Lagos. A director in New York is shooting a Jamaican artist that lives in Flatbush. And a stylist in Ghana is directly impacting a photo shoot in Atlanta. So what happens? The aesthetic starts to blend. Here's the key. They're not blending randomly. They're blending around a shared DNA. Now let's talk about that DNA, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. First layer is rhythm, not just in the music, but in the visuals. We're talking about camera cuts that feel like percussions, camera movements that feel like it's dancing with the artist. Even the way the scenes transition into each other are very rhythmic. The second layer is color. When we think color, we're talking warmth, saturation, the gold tones, the sunlight, deep contrast. Everything feels alive, even in the darker sounding records. Almost like it's glowing. The energy is glowing. And that third layer is energy. Not polished in a sterile way, but polished in a way that's more of like controlled chaos. In that case, we're talking people moving when the crowd feels alive. Moments that feel very spontaneous, even when it's clearly scripted and designed. And then there's a fourth layer, the one people look at the most, which is identity. Because these videos aren't just flexing wealth anymore, they're telling you, literally, the artist is telling you, I know exactly who I am. Let that sit for a second. That is a big shift. Peep this. Old school hip hop videos usually showed or were about the distance between them and the struggle. I made it out, I ain't never going back. Luxury was a goal. Now, luxury looks a little bit different. It's not just the chains and whips anymore. It's the context behind how we got that. You'll see high-end designer fits, yeah, but then you'll see them paired with traditional African prints. That's a big step. Now you'll see the jewelry, but it's also layered with cultural symbolism. Not new, but making a hell of a comeback. What else? You'll see a mansion, but it's surrounded by elements that feel rooted and very local and super intentional to that artist, specifically in Afrobeats. Like, success is no longer about leaving your culture behind. It's about bringing it with you and elevating it. That's a powerful visual message, and it's consistent across all three of those spaces. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite details. The tropical luxury aesthetic. Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The palm trees, the open courtyards, the luxury whips that look like they belong exactly where they're parked, the sunlight, the water, the movement, the cool rhythmic movement everywhere. But the kicker is, inside that space, the energy is still raw. It's grounded. It still feels very street. It's telling you that I can exist in this luxury without softening my edges. And that's a global message right now. Be who you are, stand in it, and move forward. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Because we got to talk about who's actually behind the camera. Because it's not just the artists at this point shaping the aesthetic. It's a creative team behind them. Who's on that team? DPs, editors, directors, man, there's a lot of them. And all of them are moving in and out of these three worlds. No one is locked into one region anymore. So now you have the same creative minds touching Afrobeat visuals, catching a flight and touching the best of the best hip hop visuals, that are touching the best of the best dancehall visuals. And now their styles start to naturally unify. They're not copying each other or cloning. It's literally unifying the message. And once that starts happening, you don't need mainstream media to validate you, because the aesthetic becomes self-sustaining. It becomes a go-to. It becomes a standard. Now, yes, that all sounds good and well, but let's address the tension, because it isn't just a clean, perfect merger here. No, sir. Afrobeats is clearly dominating the global stage right now. Streaming numbers, the festival bookings, brand partnerships, that shit is really moving. But there's one thing we can't ignore, and it's that dancehall laid the groundwork for a lot of this. The cadences, the sonic signatures, and even the attitude. Even a lot of the flows we hear today trace back to dancehall influence. And we've seen this play out before. Anybody remember the Def Jam 2000 era? More current day, we got Drake leaning more heavily into dancehall. Busta Rhymes, Bust Up Bust, was building his entire energy off of his Caribbean influence. And you can see it. Even Kendrick Lamar pulled in Agent Tasco to come on Black of the Berry to really accentuate the message there. These aren't just moments, man. They're clear signals. Big, gleaming, beeping signals. So now we're in a space where everything is merging. And the question becomes, who is getting credited and who starts to get blended into the background? Because as beautiful as evolution is, erasure is still real. And if you're not paying attention, you might celebrate the outcome without showing respect to the origin. Now, let's zoom out a little bit one more time, because the bigger picture is still very powerful. What we're witnessing is a Black Atlantic diaspora reconnecting at scale. Through visuals, through rhythm, and through, of course, this shared language of music. And this time, there's no gatekeepers. There's no permission needed. There never was, really, but it's just culture moving the way that it was always supposed to move. And now we're entering the next phase of that, because the visual language is only going to get stronger. And once technology really locks in with it, oh my God, it is going to change everything. Augmented reality, I'm talking interactive videos, even fan control perspectives. We're already seeing a little bit of that now with the different dancehall artists throughout the ages merging and dapping each other up. You know, imagine you're watching a video, but then you can switch the locations in real time. You can start in Lagos, take a quick jump cut to Kingston, and then end up in Brooklyn. The same song, different cultural lenses. But now you're not just watching the culture, you're navigating it. That's a hell of a future. So the next time that you're watching a music video and it feels familiar, but you can't really explain why, just know you're not imagining it. You're watching a global system finally in sync with itself. But I'll leave you with this. Is this really unity, or is this a beginning of certain identities getting blurred out? Because how we answer this is going to determine what comes next. But in the meantime, Thank you so much for joining me. I go by the name Shot of Adrenaline. And before you check out, please make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, and you can even hype this video. All the info is down below. Take action. Thank you so much for tapping in on this video. If you're interested in learning more about the music or the creative talks that we have on this channel, please feel free to subscribe right here on YouTube. And of course, you can follow me on all socials at Shot of Adrenaline. Take action.